While others talk theory from their studios, I take you into the field to show you real deals, real investors, and real results. This is not classroom real estate. This is the unfiltered, boots on the ground playbook of the pros. Hi guys, my name is Brian Trippe. I live in Birmingham, Alabama, but I travel all across the country to bring you in-person interviews and property walkthroughs of professional real estate entrepreneurs. I'm so glad you're along for the ride, so let's get into today's show. What's up guys, we're in Birmingham, Alabama, and I'm here with Walter Baker. And Walter, I'm honored to be here. I'm in your home, so thank you for inviting me into your home. And I'm excited to talk to you today about rental property, specifically in Birmingham, and maybe how people can get started today versus how you got started, which was quite a while ago, how things maybe have changed in the last 20 or so years, because I think that's an important distinction to make with as much as, prices have gone up. But I'd love to just kind of start, Walter, if you're okay with it, with your story, how you even got into real estate, how you found real estate, how you first knew that it was kind of like a real thing for you.
Sure. I had always read that even people that had other occupations, if they were well-to-do, they tended to have real estate. So it's always interested me. And my first entry into the real estate world, we bought a house. We were living in Houston, Texas. And right after we got married, we bought a house. And we thought we had bought it when the oil prices had bottomed out, but we were wrong. They went further. We ended up losing about 30% of our investment on that house. Got moved to Alabama with a company that I had joined. And we rented the house for a year or two, long distance landlords. Couldn't get a property manager back then. There were just too many properties available in Houston, Texas.
What year would this have been?
Oh, man, you're taxing my memory. That would have been in about 85, 86.
Oh, okay. Wow. Right.
Somewhere back then. So anyway, we got taken to a seminar by our tenants. It was painful, very painful. Ended up selling the house, like I said, taking a big loss. The next house we bought, which was here in Birmingham, we were very, very careful, probably underbought. We didn't do anything. I just entered the corporate world, and we did the regular things that people do. And we got into the .com era, and things are going haywire. I sort of got into the high-tech world, software and stuff like that, so it became very volatile. I had joined a company as a district manager, fairly high up in the company. I was as high up as you could go without being at the corporate office. And one of my directives was to get rid of the guys that were in their 50s and 60s. So I could kind of see the writing on the wall for myself. I didn't have any reason to believe that I was anything special. And that was going to approach one day in my life too. So I had opportunities to go in different businesses. The real estate always intrigued me. So one sleepless night, almost a cliche now, I'm watching an IMHO commercial on real estate, and went to a half-day free seminar designed to suck, the money out of you in the back room when the seminar's over. And that's kind of how we got started.
Yeah,
right there.
And just to fast forward all these years later, you're kind of semi-retired. Is that fair to say, or retired?
I work about 1 to 1.5 days a week.
Just from real estate, though, specifically.
Correct. Yeah.
And you're, one of those kind of figures here locally that when I first got started, you're, the person that everybody was kind of going to try to learn. Because like you mentioned, the seminar people, they would come to Birmingham every so often and, like you just said, try to get people into this and sell them into this. You started your own kind of thing, and that's where I first learned of you, is you kind of had your own little group that you were kind of teaching, and you just became this person that everybody was kind of aware of, that was obviously successful at real estate. You were teaching others how to do it, and that's how I first kind of got turned on to you. And then just through the years have seen all these people that kind of attach themselves to you and have gone and learned. But what I always kind of admired from a distance about you is there's different ways to kind of get going in real estate. It's You know, do you want to kind of treat it as a business, go fix and flip, go wholesale, and even buying rentals obviously is a business, but that's more of the rental side kind of to me is more of like an investment side of real estate versus the business necessarily, like running a business day to day. The people I know of that kind of came from you, that what you were teaching them how to buy rental property, it seemed like. And I'm sure you were teaching everything, but specifically to get wealthy, retire from real estate, is it buying and holding? Is that kind of the secret to this? Because you see people out there who are got these machines going, whether it's a wholesale machine or or a fix and flip machine, but it seems like it's very few and far between the folks that are able to keep those going and sustainable. But it's the rental property businesses I feel like are the ones that kind of you can retire from. Is that fair to say? Or where do you kind of see all that?
I'm sure there's all kinds of ways to end up well off. We've done a little bit of everything, Brian. And frankly, I didn't really think too much about rentals early on. I wanted to replace my corporate income to begin with. So, you know, we were doing flips for the most part, fix up and selling retail initially. Then we got a lot into wholesales. I started noticing that the folks I ran into that did strictly wholesales, or a lot of them that did only one thing, like lease options or something like that, they weren't around but about a year and a half. They're really creating a job for themselves with no benefits. They had to make their own benefits, get their own health insurance and stuff of that nature. The guys that seemed well off were the guys that did a lot of buy and hold. They might still do a flip. Anytime they saw an opportunity to make a little bit of money, they would certainly do that. And I started going out to lunch with a lot of these guys, and one of the oldest gentlemen, he passed away 2 or 3 years ago now, told me one time, you know, Walter, when you wake up tomorrow, you still got to go find another flip or another wholesale to pay for your groceries. And he says, if I go to Europe, take my wife to Europe, he says, I don't want to fly all the way over there and only stay a week. You know, I might stay 6 weeks. And he says, because I got all these rentals and the money just keeps coming in, all that mailbox money, it doesn't stop. And so, you know, I started asking a lot of questions about that. We had the opportunity to collect some rentals, and the first 1 or 2 didn't seem to make a big difference. But after I had about 10 or 11, I'm like, oh, this is starting to become fairly substantial money. And we just kept adding to it and added to it, and got to where to do a flip, it had to be a really good deal to be worth my effort. And in fact, the last couple of properties I bought with the intention of fixing them up and retailing them and making a quick 40 or 50 grand out of the property, and just decided, you know what, I'd rather have the monthly money. So I just turned them into rentals. So.
Not to mention, you know, the downside to all this, you know, wholesaling or whether you're flipping the house is you got a pretty hefty tax bill too.
True.
And if you hold on to it, you almost don't really have taxes at all, to an extent. So did that kind of play a part in some of this as well?
Sure. And that's part of your education, I think, when you get into real estate. If you compare someone that works in the corporate world, makes the same amount of money that we bring in every year, they're paying a whole lot more to the government than we are. We're not doing anything illegal or dishonest. We're just taking advantage of the tax laws that are given to us.
Yeah.
But it's substantial. I mean, major in terms of the money that you keep. And you've heard these cliches. It's not how much you make, it's how much you keep.
For sure.
That's profound.
And really, I mean, that's kind of the way to do it in real estate though, right? I mean, there's just the buying and holding is what allows you to almost like negate most of your taxes.
Almost, it would be hard for you to meet someone who's been doing this for 20 years that hasn't gotten into rentals, because they see the writing on the wall. And like I said, I rarely run into a person who, is only doing flips or only doing wholesales that's been doing it for more than just a couple of years. They typically just get kind of burned out. Yeah. and they figure out, hey, I could go to work for, a big corporation and make about the same kind of money, but have great benefits.
Yeah. And a lot of your time back too, because it's a time suck.
And you get a paycheck. You have a secure paycheck. Yeah. It's coming in on Friday or whatever.
Yeah, a secure paycheck that the taxes have already been taken out of, so there's no temptation to dip into that tax fund. Well, Walter, I know you. So, what year was it that you intentionally bought your first kind of buy and hold? When would that? How long ago would that have been?
2002.
2002. So that's quite some time ago.
Yeah, it's like 23, 24 years.
So going back 20 plus years of buying, and you're still buying, like if there's a great deal that comes along, you're still open to buying?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So you've been adding to it for 20 plus years.
Yes.
Can people still kind of do real estate the way you did it? Maybe the traditional kind of way where I want to go, buy a house. And you already mentioned the first so many really didn't even make a dent. But with the way that prices have just gone nuts, insurance has gone nuts, taxes have gone up. It seems like, even tenants are even harder. Good tenants are even harder to come by, it seems like. So with all these kind of negative forces against you, would you still advise people that that's kind of the way to kind of get into real estate and kind of sustain yourself long term, build wealth?
I have two sons, and they're tired of hearing me say it. They both have rentals. One of them's doing a flip right now in New Orleans. That's where he lives. Now it's a high-end flip. I've tried to instill the real estate bug into their blood a little bit. So I think it's still the easiest way to build wealth that there is.
Mm.
That doesn't mean it's without effort. Mm. And I'm not sitting here saying it's so many of the seminar guys, if you can read a book about Dick and Jane, you can do this business. Mm. Well, I'm not going to say that. It's not without effort, but compared to a lot of businesses, it's very easy. Mm. It's one of the simpler businesses there is. I still think there's plenty of money in real estate. Mm. You may have to be a little smarter. You may have to get maybe a lot more leads than you used to have to get to find that pearl that's there. But I've bought some houses in the last 3 to 4 years that are at prices that I bought them at 20 years ago. Mm. They're still out there. Mm. They're fewer and far between, for sure.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
Yeah.
And you spend more money finding them.
Okay, so that's what I want to ask you about too. So let's just say I'm a person with a W-2 income. Maybe I've got a family, maybe probably a young family. I don't really have the time to go out there and find my own deals. If I'm buying them maybe turnkey from a provider, or if I'm buying them off the MLS and just, putting a little into them, get them rent ready, and then get them with a property manager, is it worth it to buy it retail right now?
If you have a job and you're capable of living below your means, which is one of the primary tenets, you've got to have the ability to live below your means. If you're a family that has no dollars left at the end of the month, you're waiting for the next paycheck, this is going to be a tough business for you. Mm-hmm. You got to be a little bit of a squirrel and store away your nuts here and there. Brian, one of my biggest regrets is that I wasn't buying houses when I had a job, because we did have the ability to live below our means. We've had neighbors come and go, move to bigger houses with higher ceilings, and we resisted that temptation. I wish I had bought houses and just gotten loans on them and paid them off over the years. And I've got a good friend that did that. He made good money. They lived below their means, and he just bought houses the old-fashioned way.
Like putting 20% down and getting them off the MLS?
Yeah, got loans. And then, whenever he got up to a certain amount of loans where he was cut off from a bank, he found another bank. Right. Or he'd find some other way to finance the property.
Sure.
When he retired, which it was in his 50s, well, he had like 75 houses at that point. Almost all of them had been paid off or paid way down.
That he was doing the whole time he had his regular job.
The whole time. He was very well off and still is. And now his hobby is really making money. So he's got all kind of businesses
Right.
now. He just loves going out there and creating money.
Sure. So let me ask you about what kind of house to buy. Because I guess there's a few different theories here. Do I buy the new build, the brand new house in the good subdivision that I'm going to get less maybe ROI up front because the rents don't really match up with the purchase price, but I'm getting a house that's new. I'm not going to have anything wrong with it. No CapEx for many, many, many years. Hopefully I'm attracting a better tenant. Hopefully it'll appreciate too,
Right.
a little bit better.
Right.
Or do I go and buy these $20 and $30 and $40,000 houses? And yes, you can definitely still do that in Birmingham for sure. Maybe put a little bit into it, make it rent ready. And I'm using numbers more today. I know we've both gotten properties way less than that. Say I'm in it for 50 and it's gonna, 50 or 60 and it's gonna rent for 900, 1,000, maybe even 1,100 because these rents have gone up too.
That's right.
So do I go maybe with the lesser kind of property and more of like the C kind of areas? Or do I go after more of the A kind of areas, the really nice property? Any advice there? Any suggestions?
It's a great question. And I think it depends on the stage of life that you're in.
Mm.
When we got into it, I needed to make income.
Okay.
So I went low end.
Okay.
If I could go back in time and start buying houses earlier when I had a job, I'd probably be looking at garden homes out in the suburbs on slabs, very, simple construction, simple to fix, simple to maintain. And those houses, I don't know if I would buy new construction. I'd have to sit down and do a little bit of arithmetic to find out if that would work out. But I would imagine if you were literally buying lots and hiring a contractor, I think I could make that work, to build the house yourself.
Sure.
But, more than likely I'd be looking at buying something from 4 to 6 years old that there was some domestic abuse or somebody had a mean, bad dog or something like that. And the place was torn up because I know I can repair it fairly cheaply and get it up to snuff.
What's maybe the downside to doing it, to going after the lower end properties? And how do you maybe overcome what could be considered downsides?
Well, you certainly can't have too much emotion involved in it. You do run into some bad tenants that you just wonder how in the world they live. I showed you one like that, I think, last week.
Yeah.
So you'll have to do another one when we finish it.
Okay.
It's already
pictures.
It's already a lot better than when you were there.
All right.
Everyone says, you get worser tenants at the low end. I think statistically you probably do, but not as bad as you think. I have some little houses that you would never want to live in, but the tenants have a lot of pride and joy on that particular house. The yards are unbelievable. It's like a garden or something. So you get those over time. I don't care if you had $1 million home or a multi-million-dollar home, you could get a bad tenant in there. So that's certainly possible. There are certain property managers that are not going to go to the low end. That's for sure. I don't really know how much worse it is. I've obtained some much nicer homes in the last 5 to 6 years. I don't see a major difference in the tenants that I'm getting or in the operation of the house. It costs a whole lot more to get it rent ready when you lose someone.
The better houses.
Yes. And I had one, it kind of scared me off of big homes for a while down in, I don't know if everybody watching this is in Birmingham, but it's a suburb called Alabaster. Very nice home, and rented it to the wrong person. And boy, it cost me a fortune to get that thing back. And I sold it. I said, I don't have anything to do with this. I went through that stage for quite a while.
Wow. For me, it's the emotion part of it that you talked about. You got to kind of really, and it's difficult in the beginning to kind of cut some emotions out of this. But even just, the type of house that is in some of maybe these lesser areas, maybe these rougher areas, do you worry about not just the tenant? Do you worry about crime? Do you worry about vandalism? Do you worry about just the fact that you have a much older house too, probably? Do you worry about any of these other downsides, and has that come into really play for you?
I can't say that I worry about it. Does it come into play? Absolutely. I've had I have found some bullet holes in roofs and in doors in some of my houses.
Yep.
We could sit here and talk war stories for a long time.
For sure.
It gets pretty funny. I'm not a worrier. I don't worry about it. I don't know my tenants. They don't know me.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm over at a house that's mine, I'm just working for the property manager, and I'm there to do a specific task, and I'll look around or whatever. And it's kind of funny too. I'll always ask them, "What do you think about your landlord?" And boy, they'll just talk about how bad of a guy I am, and they've never met me.
Yeah.
But I'm evil,
Yeah.
and because I own the house, I guess. But
I've been accused of being a slumlord. I don't even really know how to define that, I guess. And has that word ever come up to you? And what does that mean? And how do you kind of take the emotion out of that?
I don't own houses in war zones.
Okay.
All right, that's number one.
Well, let's define that too, if you don't mind. And I don't want you to lose your thought either.
No, that's fine. But you might have to bring me back. In a war zone, to me, is a place where you're just not comfortable going, especially at night. If you needed to go check out something in your house, you just don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And those areas are fairly well known here where I live. I'm buying houses where people that are my age that were born and raised here, this is where they grew up. And the neighborhood's turned. They all moved out to the suburbs and bought 3-2s or 4-2s or whatever. But these are typically little 3-1s, sometimes 2-1s, sometimes 3 1.5 baths, small homes, 1,100 square feet. I've got like 3 2-1s that are 672 square feet. Very, very small.
Gosh. Wow.
Very small. Like an apartment, really.
Yeah. But going back to the the slumlord, I guess, phrase that's definitely gets thrown. Or I guess when people like go in and they see like a house or see how people live, they're like, oh, that must be just a slumlord. Well, it's like, well, this isn't how it was.
I've looked at some that were being presented to me from other investors wanting me to buy them. And the floors are like this. Mm-hmm. You can't open the closets or the interior doors because the floor bounces up. They're slumlords, in my opinion. My houses, everything's level. There's air conditioning. There's heating in the winter. The roofs never leak. We have security doors, on all the doors. They're nice homes. There's a nice place to live. Mm-hmm. The area may not be as safe as where I live, but I certainly don't consider myself a slumlord. Would never want to be considered that.
For sure.
But I know what you're speaking of.
Yeah.
There is more money in that, interestingly enough. Yeah.
Going to the real low end, going up on war zone type
really
areas.
Is. If you're tough enough to do it, and you got a property manager or you're willing to manage it yourself, because you can pick up the property so much cheaper. A lot of the people that live in these places, it gets roach infested. Mm. They won't call you and say, hey, somebody needs to spray here. They'll just live with them. And so I don't want to have anything to do with that. But the people that do really make more money if you're willing to get into that. Yeah. It's just the way it goes. And the higher you go, the less money there is in it.
From a cash flow standpoint.
Yes. That's where I was going. Over time, because of the buildup of capital, it may be a better thing. You certainly are going to end up with a much nicer asset,
right?
One that's worth a lot more.
And I guess some of the benefits to having more of the higher end is, like, if I have a lower end property, who am I going to sell it to? Really, just probably another investor on the real low end.
Right.
On the higher end, I guess I got with a single family residence, I've got more options. It's more marketable. What's the downside? Is it just the immediate cash flow? What's the downside to having a higher end type of property?
Well, to get it rent ready initially, it's going to cost you a little bit more. The return itself, the cash on cash return, is just not all that substantial. I mean, you're probably looking at, to get a good deal, you'd be looking at 10 to 12%. Whereas if you go into buy a pretty nice 3 1.5 somewhere, I usually get returns somewhere between 22 and 32%.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that range. And I've gotten them as good as 65%.
And that's buying cash.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because you can always do better if you're negotiating directly with a seller.
I have my favorite way to buy is with seller financing.
Okay, let's talk. I want to talk about that. Yeah.
Okay, so that's number one. I had a number of homes that I had private loans on through private lenders. Never used hard money lenders. Didn't need to. I found plenty of private lenders. So I had some leveraged, but there's really no money in rental if the house is leveraged. You know, you're waiting on it to pay off before it's really doing well for you. The way you look at that is your tenant is paying that house off. Right. And I've heard that from multiple landlords.
Right.
There's no money in rental when it's leveraged, while it's leveraged.
And I've heard that too. And then there's the other camp that would say, right, there's no immediate cash flow because even the 100, 200, 300, you might think you're getting, it's really over time, you're going to put that back into the property.
True.
But I guess the other side of the argument there is, well, it's going to appreciate. So in 5 years and 10 years, I can refinance and I can pull more money out.
Right.
And then keep kicking that can down the road, refi till you die. There is that camp, but that in your experience, it's you want them paid off.
That refi deal, which, I mean, you go all the way back to Nothing Down with Robert Allen, you know, a real famous book. I don't know whatever happened to him. He probably went bankrupt. To me, that's a formula for disaster.
He's still out there?
Is he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, if you're continually refinancing your house, boy, get ready. I mean, I just don't agree with that. Mm-hmm. I don't like being that fully leveraged at all. I don't mind being leveraged if it makes sense, but that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And, Dave Ramsey, he went bankrupt doing that. Yeah. So he's not a dumb guy.
Yeah.
I just think that's a dumb formula. And I'm sure we both have friends that are doing that right now.
I don't think there's any doubt. Well, there's with YouTube and with the seminar, there's so much information out there, and no one is wrong when they're sharing their experience. They're not wrong. Like if they had a really great experience doing that way and they want to talk about it and share with it, they might not necessarily be wrong, and you're not obviously necessarily wrong. You could both end up at the same place, but I guess what I hear you saying is it seems like it's a little riskier to go that route.
It's a whole lot riskier. Yeah. And I mean, you really need to have some background in accounting or finance to pull that off. Mm-hmm. Pretty dangerous. A lot of people don't realize if you're renting a house for $1,000, 400 of that rent will go back into that house. It may not be this year or next year, but sooner or later it's going to need a roof, an HVAC system, an upgrade in electrical, a tree's going to fall on it or something. You're going to spend about 40% of your gross rent on that house. Management, taxes, insurance, and upkeep.
Yeah. At minimum 40%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I say 40%, you're getting a tax benefit, you're getting depreciation, and of course, everything you buy, you write off. Right. And people that think they're cash flowing $100 or $200, especially after they're paying off a loan or something like that, yeah. They're probably in the red on that house. They just don't know it yet.
Right. So let's talk about that person. Let's say I'm getting into real estate. I've got a strong W-2. I want to start buying some houses. This person might think that there's $100, maybe $200 left at the end of every month, and that's going into my bank account, right? For that few $100 that's coming in every month, what do we do with that money? Do we store that away? Is there something that you would advise people that are just getting going? I just got my first one. Maybe I have one or two or three.
Assuming that they're covering the insurance and taxes and the management. Management is about 10%. If you don't have a beach property is like 35%, but 10% management. If you're going to manage it yourself, you're a special kind of person. For me, I would not be in this business if I were managing my own houses. I just couldn't take it.
But there's the people out there that I want to save that 10%.
I know. I know. And we've had, you alluded to kind of we used to have a coaching program and I just discouraged them like crazy from managing it themselves, but some of them did it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of them are still around.
Right.
So, they had the will to do it.
Right.
I just couldn't do it.
Right.
Your maintenance part, the maintenance component of a house is about 20%. Again, let's use that $1,000 a month per rent. 200 of that is definitely going to go back into the house. Over a 20, 30-year period, 20% of your gross rent is going to be spent on that house, keeping it up for the person to live in it. As far as how you handle that from a personal standpoint, you better store it up. You better have it in a bank account. You better have a way to pay for that new roof or that new HVAC system, or the tenant's going to move out.
Going back to your first story, talking about how the kind of like the bad experience with that first property that you had bought and had to take a loss selling it. How did that not discourage you from getting back into it?
Well, it did initially. I just went to work, for another company, and we were just living life, having children and doing all the things that people do. But it was always in the back of my mind. I knew that we had an unfortunate situation with the oil boom and bust. We just didn't time it right when we purchased. I knew being a long distance landlord was not a good thing. I just couldn't sell the house. So I had to rent it out and ended up with a bad tenant. I did a lot of things wrong. The main thing I did wrong is I never really studied up on it. Didn't, read a whole bunch of books on how to manage a house long. There's probably a book on how to manage a house long distance. So I didn't do anything like that. But we took a severe loss, and it did discourage me for a long time. It did.
When you decided to go for it again, was it difficult to convince your wife? Or how were those conversations initially when you decided to jump back into real estate?
So I've told people before our timing was almost a God thing.
Right.
Like the timing was just perfect. My second child had entered school. My wife had always worked up until she had the two children, and she wanted to go back to work. And so I mentioned I watched a seminar, an info commercial, and I said, Saturday, I'm going to go to the Winfrey Hotel and attend a seminar. She says, I'd like to go with you. And so she was all in from the very get-go. That was part of my secret, was I had a partner that was able and willing. And I told her, I said, look, I'm going to put away $100,000, and we're going to burn through this $100,000 in our first year, because we're not going to make money right away. And if we burn through all $100,000, I'll go back to work. And meanwhile, I'm going to keep all my contacts. I had a good Rolodex of people that, that I could call, and, I had a good reputation in the field that I was in. So I knew I could go back to work after a year if I didn't wait too long. I bought a house on a Monday. Bought a house, a little junker in Northeast Lake.
Okay.
I quit my job that Friday.
Okay.
I don't recommend anybody doing that. That's, but I said, well, we had planned it. And so I ended up making like $9,000 on just wholesaling that house.
Okay.
We didn't make another paycheck for 7 months.
So that 100,000, you quit your job.
Correct.
You needed to live off that money.
That's right.
While you were trying to make the real estate.
That's right.
Work.
Plus we were investing in marketing and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the end of 7 months, my wife pulled off a wholesale that we netted just a few dollars less than $97,000.
A wholesale?
No, it was a short sale.
Oh, short.
I may have said wholesale. I meant short sale. Okay. She short sold it to the bank. It was a mess. It was a guy had business bankruptcies attached to the house, had IRS liens attached to the house. She worked all of that off. We had paid for a seminar to learn how to do it. She pulled it off. And so then we went to the lake. I said, well, let's go celebrate. Went to the lake, and we were there for like 6 weeks. I'd come home to mow the grass and pay the bills and then go back to the lake. And during that 6 weeks, we made about another $160,000 just because all the effort we had been putting in for the 7 months. But we had the work ethic from being in the corporate world. You know, we were working from can to can't. And you could ask my 2 boys how we'd sit around the dinner table at night just talking real estate. They were bored stiff. You know, but they still remember that. But anyway, it worked out. It worked out real well. And so we were all about making cash. And then, as I said, I start running into these people that just seem to have the lifestyle that I wanted.
Right.
And they were all kind of getting into rentals.
Right.
They still flipped, you know,
sure,
occasionally, and we still do too.
Right. Exactly. Most every person I talk to who's been successful at real estate, there was a point in time where they had to take like this big risk. I guess for you, it was, I quit my job and I'd saved up all this money and we're basically going to go through our life savings at some point to try to make this thing work. That's a pretty big risk.
Right.
You feel like that's what it takes?
I kind of do. Because here's the deal. I told my wife, we'll burn through $100,000. I think I can go back to work, but I can't promise you I can. You know, like my contacts might all dry up or whatever. And I said, here's the thing. We got to be willing to lose it all. Like we could lose everything, have to move out of this house, have to start all over. And she said, let's do it. We've done it before. What the heck? And so your spouse is real important, real important. And we've had folks in our coaching program back when we were doing it. The spouse was not cooperative at all. They were, in fact, anti-real estate. They didn't want to have anything to do with it. And it was a lot harder for that person, much, much harder. Yeah. So to have buy-in from your spouse is important. But it is possible that none of this works out for you. And the reason I say that, we've had people that I've tried to teach how to do this that I can't teach. I just can't get them to do it. They have some mental issues or blocks about it. They're not crazy or anything, and they're great citizens. You know, they have good jobs and, you know, they pay the bills for their families and everything else, but they don't have the knack for whatever reason.
So real estate's not for everybody.
Not for everybody. And I personally, Brian, I think you've got to really like it, and preferably you got to love it. If you're just there for the money, I don't know if you're going to be that good at it. If it's just like, hey, you know, I want to make $500,000 a year and still, you know, be able to go play golf 4 times a week. I'm just looking for a money source. Right. I don't know if you're going to be that good at it.
It almost sounds like that person that you just described doesn't really have the work ethic that they want to put into it.
It's not their deal. You know, it's not what they really want to do. And, you know, I don't know what they might want to do, but like the house that I showed you last week, when I got that thing back and first time I laid eyes on it, I'm like, wow, this is a mess. This is going to be a lot of fun. Right. I'm going to fix this thing back up and the neighbors are going to be like, wow, you know, this is impressive. I really get into it.
Another person might have the opposite reaction to that.
Yeah, I still really get into it.
Oh, this tenant just tore up my house.
Yeah.
Woe is me.
Yeah. I
gotta fire sale this thing and I gotta get out of this thing.
Right. But I enjoy it. And I love buying a house that's been torn to heck and back and fixing it up, selling it to a homeowner. And they're like, golly, this is the nicest place I've ever seen. Yeah. You know, it's great.
I don't know. I'm trying to think too. Like I loved it there for a little while. I don't know how much I want to get into all this. Had an interesting spousal situation. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah.
And it does. It makes it. It's like you're not only trying to fight to make a living and just natural business that's going on, but you have like this separate uphill battle that you're fighting kind of continuously.
Yes.
And it makes it a lot more difficult for sure.
A lot of times a spouse, and I'm not necessarily talking female spouse here either, but a lot of times a spouse is more into security than anything else.
That's absolutely right.
It's all about security. And you're going out on your own, you're going to wholesale and retail and get rentals and, pay your own taxes and all of that. That's not the picture of security.
For sure.
Let's face it.
And, just a little bit I know about your wife is she really does seem like she's that kind of person where she'd take a risk. Yeah. And she's okay with taking a risk.
Yeah.
So a calculated risk.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true.
I appreciate you kind of going through that with me a little bit, because I've coached people, I've kind of helped people through deals. And what I've found is coaching and teaching end up being different. Like teaching the X's and O's of it, like the how to do it, is, which I know you're obviously great at and was what I really enjoy doing. I didn't realize there was this other component where it almost seemed like I was the therapist.
Right.
And, people would come in and we'd talk, okay, well, I get, you're supposed to do the X, Y, and Z. Did you do it? No, she wouldn't do this, or no, he wouldn't do that. And I become marriage counselor all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And it's like, I didn't sign up to be marriage counselor.
Right.
But it ends up being almost, it's the vast majority of what I was dealing with is just what's going on between people's heads. And you just, kind of phrased it where, maybe people just don't have the knack for it. I've always just kind of wondered, is it teachable? Is it teachable to kind of like fix what's going on in people's minds?
When we started our coaching program, what I saw out there in coaching programs was exactly what you're describing is, let's talk on the phone once a week. I'm going to, try to motivate you or inspire you to do what you need to do. I'm going to hold you accountable and all that kind of stuff. I never subscribed to that. I wanted a coaching program that would cross the T's and dot the I's. Yeah. Teach me step by step, give me the recipes to go forward. So when we did our coaching program, that's one of the things in all of my promotional information, I wrote in there, I'm not a life coach. I'm not here to inspire you whatsoever. I don't believe anybody can motivate another person. You have to have your own motivation. You can inspire, but I'm not an inspirational speaker or anything of that nature. I would not make a good pastor, at a church. So I used to tell them, this is really a teaching program. I still call it coaching, but one of the guys that's been real successful, went through the program, told me it was really a teaching program. Oh. When people would get into that mode with me, and they'd say, hey, I'm having trouble with my wife or whatever, I go, I can't help you there. That's not me. Yeah. I can only tell you how to do it. Yeah. So I stayed out of it, out of the fray completely.
Smart. For sure.
I didn't know what to do anyway, so
right.
I wouldn't have been able to help them.
Yeah. And I believe, motivation is one of those things where you can try to motivate someone and it sounds great and somebody can get motivated, but it's like, I'm a big fan of David Goggins, the guy that went out there, he's the Navy SEAL who just started running, doing a lot of ultra marathons, and he gets super motivated and gets his shoes on. And then, I'm ready to go outside, and he opens up the door and that 20-degree wind blows and hits him, and all that motivation disappears in an instant. Right. Because you just faced an obstacle. So motivation can only get you so far. It's like the person that wants to do real estate, they want to do it so badly. I remember I went to a seminar, and it was the little free thing that gets you into the paid thing that was maybe a few $100, and then it was like, we're going to send you to the back of the room. Let's
formulate it.
Yeah, for sure. They were, they're giving away free things, to people in the audience. If they answered a question or asked a question, oh, you get this book. I got this book handed to me. It was this really big kind of workbook looking thing. It was 200 pages. Came home and I opened it up, and I couldn't put it down. I could not put it down.
Right.
I went through that whole book. I was up to like 3 a.m. I went through that whole book.
Yeah.
Because I was so intrigued and interested in it was so fascinating. It's like, I want to do this.
Right.
I feel like it's that person. It's that person that's going to be successful at real estate. It's the person that has so much, so inquisitive about it that they're going to go make things happen. They're going to watch all the YouTube videos, listen to all the podcasts, which are available today, which weren't really around.
That's right.
Even 13 years ago when I got started, it wasn't nowhere near what it is today. But it's that person that's going to be successful. It's not the person that you need to hold their hand and walk them through. Like, I would rather go mess up a deal and learn that way
Yeah.
than go and spend $50,000 for someone to kind of tell me what to do.
Right.
I feel like it's the person that goes and makes it happen on their own.
Yeah.
That's the person that's going to be successful at it.
Well, kind of tied to that, what we've observed is a lot of the guys that do well at it, when I say guys, I'm talking guys and gals, they're the people that worked straight commission, where they were responsible for everything, or they had their own little business. Maybe it was one they didn't care for, a carpet cleaning business or something like that. But they were chief bottle washer, the maid, the CEO, they were everything. Those people tended to have more success quicker. Sometimes they would have success versus no success at all. The person that worked in one of these cubby holes for the power company or something like that, where they have one task all day long, they don't even know what happens when the task gets moved on to the next person, they would struggle more because they weren't used to managing themselves. They were just told what to do.
Totally.
So those people struggled. But yeah, you're right. When we first got into this, golly, did I ever read. I mean, I read stuff and listened to stuff. And, my car was a university with a tape player and all that. Back then it was tapes. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even CDs yet. Yeah. So
where'd you get those? Do you remember?
The tapes?
Yeah.
I bought them everywhere. I mean, every seminar you went to, you end up with a full book of tapes. Oh, that's right. With the workbook.
Yes, I never did any of that. That was kind of before my time.
Oh, when we started having success and the money started coming in, I probably spent, I would say, $30,000 to $40,000 going to seminars just all over the place, and dabbled in some other things too, which I learned real quick. I had a little bit of entrepreneurial blood in me, which makes you want to go here and here and here, and before you know it, you're in 12 things and you're not good at any of them. So, I tried some information marketing and made some money at it, but I said, well, I make a lot more in real estate. And it may be a little bit exciting to get this going, but I should stay over here. And I made a lot of mistakes. I got to where one of the things that happens to you is you don't mind making mistakes. Mm-hmm. And I heard one speaker one time say, I make more mistakes in a day than most people make decisions. Mm-hmm. And he says, I just live with it because every now and then one of them hits and I make a lot of money from it. Right. And I think that's profound. I mean, that's good stuff.
It's like failing forward.
Exactly.
Like you have to fail at things in order to get there. What's one of the bigger mistakes you made? Do you remember?
Well, like I said, I wish I'd started earlier, much earlier. Golly, I've made so many mistakes, Brian. I've, just from everything from deciding I'm not going to spend the money to put a cage over that AC unit, and then the next day it's gone, to not going ahead and replacing the copper underneath the house with PEX and losing the copper the next weekend, and just a ton of stuff like that.
Any big financial losses or mistakes that you've learned from?
One of the things that was very intriguing to me is I had a lot of low-end houses, and ran into this group of guys that they were not insuring them. They were insuring them for liability in case somebody got hurt. They wouldn't lose everything they had. But they pointed out that if you look at the insurance money that you spend when you get up to about 30 houses, if you look at the insurance money, if you just insure them with liability only, you could buy another house about every year with the savings in insurance. So I went that route. Wow. And I have saved, I don't know how much money. However, in 2021, a tornado blew through Fultondale and took out a 4.2 I had, which was I had purchased it for like $30,000. But at the time the tornado blew it away, it was worth probably $120,000, $130,000. Mm-hmm. So that one hurt bad. The tenant literally got sucked into the front yard. The mom and daughter were in the bathtub. And it's really true what they say about the bathrooms, by the way. Mm-hmm. Get in the bathtub. Mm-hmm. Saved their life. He was bruised up, but he lived through it too. So it was amazing. But the house was destroyed. And then I lost a house to fire about 2 years ago over in Midfield. And then just about 3 months ago, I had a perfectly healthy, beautiful, huge oak fall and just chop a house in two. So I lost 3 houses since 21. Those you could call big mistakes, but I kind of knew what I was doing.
Right.
However, I've had to reassess.
Right.
A lot of my homes are worth a lot more money than I paid for them. And it did hurt. Now, the little one to the fire, really the one in Fultondale really hurt. It just so happens I had just put on new siding and some new windows in it too. So, I had spent another 20 grand on it or something right before that happened.
Right. So are you still doing that today? That strategy?
With a number of homes, I am.
Oh, wow.
But more and more, I'm insuring them.
You're insuring the better ones, the higher priced ones?
Those, and also I've started buying. One of the coolest things I ever found out about was the Roth IRA.
Right.
And so I own, between my wife and my IRAs, we have multiple ones. We own 13 homes in the Roth IRAs. Those are all insured because those are retirement funds, so to speak. And those are like a separate livelihood. Those accounts are just going nuts. Mm-hmm. And because those were later in my career, in my real estate career, they do tend to be my nicer homes too. But I found some junkers that I also put in there. You just got to make sure you're covered insurance-wise.
Yeah. So that insurance thing, that's like another one of those like risks, or yes, one of those things that you just kind of have to maybe make that decision for yourself. Is that something you would advise other people to do?
I mentioned I'm not a worrier. I thought it was brilliant until I lost, 3 houses. Now I'm reassessing.
Because it sounded like it was brilliant for quite some time there.
Yeah, made a lot of money from it. But my houses are spread out. I do have a friend that had everything was in Center Point, and when a tornado went through there, it took out about 6 of his houses. So I do have mine spread out. He had his insured, so it was no big deal. But I am a bit of a risk taker. I used to skydive. I mean, I always like heights, jumping out of tall trees and stuff like that into creeks. Now that's physical risk. But and if you put it down on paper, Brian, to this day, having done that, I made a whole lot more money. Yeah. And even the one in Fultondale that blew away from the tornado, when I sat there and realized that house had paid for itself about 7 times over, even though it was worth a lot of money when I lost it, I had still made a lot more money by not insuring it.
Yeah.
So,
Walter, why single family? Why not multifamily? Why not something a little bit different?
Great question. I've owned some multifamily. Mm-hmm. Always had somebody that played their rock music too loud, or they lived like a pig, so their roaches went to all the other tenants' roaches, right, and it became the other tenants' roaches. And I kind of thought back when I was living in apartments, back before I was ever married or anything. Every year I would move to another apartment because they'd build a new one, that had a nicer pool and prettier girls or something.
Right.
And so I'd move over there. And that's what I was experiencing with my apartments. If you have a tenant that's only there for a year, it's hard to make money. Yeah. You really need a tenant to stay for 6 or 8 years. Yeah. And that's when you're really making money. Yeah. So I just like single family better. I truly do. I got rid of all my apartments. I didn't care for it. It wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of people, now I came this close to buying a 68 unit apartment building in Hueytown. If I had gotten that, I'd still have it. Right. So I think if you got a big enough complex to where you can have an on-site manager, you're golden. But if you've got 12 units or something like that,
they're operating like a single family almost, as far as
no good
management.
I just don't like it. Yeah. I don't like it.
Yeah. Economies of scale is one big one I hear. You could get, even in your scenario, 12 in one loan on 12. So you got that going for you. I had a 59 space mobile home park where it was seller financed and one loan, and all of a sudden it's $12,000 in free cash flow, like overnight.
Yeah. From
0 to 12.
Nice. Versus
getting one house at a time. So there are advantages and disadvantages, but for sure. What about commercial? What about anything else? Any other real estate investments, self-storage or anything like that?
I haven't. By the time I got to where I had the wherewithal to buy like self-storage or something of that nature. I had been off on some other tangents that I lost my focus in real estate and realized I wasn't having as good of a year. So I'd come back, and so I just never delved into it. And then I had some good friends that were doing commercial. It's a lot longer deal before you start realizing your money, especially if you're selling it. If you're buying land or whatever, obviously a lot bigger investment, but a lot more time before you realize the fruits of your labor. Real estate's pretty quick.
Yeah.
We could buy, rehab, and sell a house in 4 months back when we were in our heyday.
Right.
And man, you're making a lot of money if you're turning them that quick.
For sure.
You're doing good.
Yeah. And you can find the deals.
Yeah. So the way we financed most of our rentals was we would rehab a house and sell it to a homeowner. We were averaging a little over $41,000 a pop in profit. And we just buy a rental house free and clear with the money. That's the way we bought the majority of ours.
Yeah. And that seems to be like the business model for the people that want real estate to be a business. It's, I've got to have a marketing machine, whatever that is. I've got to have a marketing arm to my business because I've got to be able to get the deals. And I'm either wholesaling and or flipping, and I'm taking those profits and I'm going out and buying rentals. Yeah. And I'm just repeating that as much as I can. And that seems to be the business model that works.
It's the one I like the best
for most.
But I mean, I don't mind leveraging, especially if you're a high wage earner. I mean, if I were a physician or a dentist or something like that, I mean, I'd be buying real estate all I could the old fashioned way.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you're lendable,
Yes.
If you got a good job like that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something. Who's in your corner? One of the biggest breakthroughs in my real estate journey came when I stopped trying to figure it all out on my own and I started surrounding myself with high-level investors who are actually doing deals and building real businesses. That's why I created Board of Advisors, a curated mastermind for real estate entrepreneurs who are serious about growth. We're talking real conversations about cash flow, hiring, deal flow, burnout, and strategy, the stuff that actually moves the needle. We're meeting October 6th and 7th in Birmingham, Alabama. And if you've been feeling stuck or isolated or like your business could grow faster with the right people around you, then I want you to go to boamastermind.com and enter that promo code podcast. That way you get a deep discount, and that way you can join us. When I say deep discount, I really mean it. I'm literally only covering my costs to host the event. So go ahead and go to boamastermind.com, enter that promo code podcast, and join us here in Birmingham. And I just want to be clear here, this isn't one of those flashy masterminds full of influencers trying to build their followings. This room is built for operators, real estate investors who want to scale their business, not their social media presence. Go to boamastermind.com, enter the promo code podcast, and meet me in Birmingham on October 6th and 7th.
What's up, guys? We are in Birmingham, Alabama, in the East Lake community, and we're over here checking out this house that Walter Baker has. This is a house that you've had and rented for a while, and now your tenant moved out, and you're doing a tenant turnover.
Right.
That's what's going on.
Right.
You want to kind of give us the rest of the history of the house as we do, as we get out of the rain. It's starting to rain on us a little bit.
Come on in. So I bought the house in 2011. Bought it from a wholesaler, which was actually my son.
Okay.
So he made some money on it.
Great.
$15,000 for the house in 2011, and we put about 15 into it to get it rent ready. So I've had it rented to the same guy for 5 years. It's a total mess right now. This one's probably about as bad as you get in terms of how a tenant treated it. So the story on this was, after the tenant had been here a year, I use property managers. I don't manage them myself. I do some of the refurbishing when I lose a tenant. I go back and forth on that depending on who the property manager is, because I use 3 property managers. In this particular case, the property manager called me when she did her annual inspection and said, "Hey, this guy's a pig. The house is full of junk. He's not taking care of it. The walls are scarred," and said he's really, really bad. I said, "Well, let's get him out. Let's don't renew the lease. And she said, well, I told him to get it cleaned up. I was going to come back in 6 weeks. And so let's do that first.
So is this in year one that you leased it to him?
Okay. Yes, this was like 5 years ago.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, so she goes back 6 weeks later and said, okay, bad news is he hasn't done anything. Good news is it's no worse than it was before. She said, the damage has been done, just so you know. I said, well, let's wait till the end of his lease and check it out then. So the same thing came back, same news. It's just as bad as it was, no worse than it was. And she said, you've already lost your money. So I said, okay, let's keep him. He was paying his rent.
Mm-hmm.
He rented about $900 for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so finally he moves out. Mm-hmm. And so this is what we had. What I should have done is I should have come over here once a year because there were some other things going on on the outside of the house, which I should have addressed at that point. The house does need a new roof. I could have addressed earlier.
Sure.
Frankly, it's not going to cost me a whole lot more than it would have then if I had addressed it. Mm-hmm. So the bottom line is the house has been making me money, but now I'm about to spend some money.
Right. I'd like to keep kind of asking you a little bit more about this house.
Sure. Just what you want to know.
So you got it in 2011, paid 15 for it, put 15 into it, and that's going back a ways, right? We're going back 14 years now. What's it worth today? Maybe in the current condition, and what's it worth once it gets fixed up, do you think?
The one next door, I looked up on realtor.com, but it was on the market for $175.
Wow.
Now, same number of bedrooms and baths, but it is jammed up. I mean, it was fixed up to me more like a retail would be. So it was done very nicely. Yeah. But the homes were right against Roebuck Springs, about another 2
which is a little bit better of an area.
A lot of people retail up in that area.
Yeah.
And really this area, we're in Southeast Lake, and there's isolated spots in here where people are getting a lot of money.
Now, when you bought this in 2011, I'm sure those were the days where you were trying to pick up as many as you could because you were getting them.
I still am. I just can't get them for 11 anymore.
Right.
So I actually paid 11 and paid my son $4,000.
Okay, got you.
So that's why I saved 15.
Yeah. So okay, but 15,000 for a property. Well, 30 to get it rent ready, and then collecting rent all these years, right? And I guess you've probably had. You said that one tenant been in there for 5 years, so you probably had a tenant before that. With your experience with it, on average, say, how long can you go before you're going to come back in and spend some real money on a property?
Some of that has to do with luck. That obviously the tenant that you select is the key. You're constantly looking for property managers that know how to find good tenants, because I don't get involved in that. Other than I approve, if it's even if it's a Section 8 tenant, I like to see some information on the tenant. But obviously we do background checks and things of that nature. But the worst thing that can happen to you is to have someone come into your house and stay 1 year for the first lease and then leave. That costs you money. Yeah. So you want long-term tenants, 5-10 years.
So in order to get a longer-term tenant, do you like to come down just like a little bit on the rent just to make sure you get some, or do you like to push it as far as you can push it?
We haven't found that really matters.
Okay, gotcha.
It's kind of the luck of the draw and
gotcha.
Who comes around.
So what are you going to push this rent to? I'm assuming you're going to come in here and do probably quite a lot. We're going to go through a walkthrough and you're going to tell me, or I'm going to ask you what you're going to do to it. But what do you think you're going to be able to push the rent to this time around?
This is just kind of a blind luck guess, but I'm thinking around 1,200.
Okay.
My property manager will do a little research on what other houses are renting for around here, and I might knock on the girl's door next door and find out what she's paying.
Sure.
I've already spoken to her several times. So some of that stuff will go into what we're going to charge.
Gotcha. Okay, so you come over here, it's empty, the tenant's out, and now you come over here and you kind of see a little bit more of a mess, it seems like, on the outside. But let's just focus, let's start on the inside here. Just right out the gate, what do you feel like you're going to have to do on the interior?
Well, first of all, we've already done a clean out on this, believe it or not.
Okay.
All right. So there's been, I think, 4 loads that went to the dump. You would not believe it, Brian, when I first walked in here. Now, it's kind of funny. 20 years ago, I'd have walked in here and go, oh, wow. Nowadays, I walk in and go, well, this isn't that bad. We had this hauled out and do this, and it's just, you just get jaded, And,
so the guy moved out, and I'm assuming he didn't get a security deposit.
We kept it.
Yeah.
We kept it for sure.
Gotcha.
He wasn't not expecting that back.
Right. So, okay, so you've already kind of cleaned it out of stuff. What about, so from a flooring standpoint, what flooring is down, and then what you think you're going to have to do?
Okay, this was an experiment that I did, many years ago. This is the old laminate that we all used to put in these things. And I like to get rid of carpet whenever possible. I think most landlords do. The laminate, it's held up okay, but it's got to come out. We now do the luxury vinyl tile, for the most part, LVT, throughout our houses whenever we can. You'll find 2 bedrooms back here have hardwoods that we put a real dark stain on because it had some real dark spots in it originally. And then we got a bedroom back here that still has carpet because the carpet was salvageable. I'll normally, if I can get a carpet cleaned and get through one tenant with it, I'll wait to put in the LVT later on. So, those things.
Okay. And then I'm sure you're going to probably paint it.
Oh yeah.
What else are you going to do on the interior?
Well, it'll be flooring. If we go into the kitchen here, we had an island. This island's right here. This is going to be hauled out. So I have an oven, which I found out years ago is a special size. It took me a while to find a replacement for the oven. This is not a good situation with tenants. These are very expensive to replace. So I've already had a contractor come over and pull out the island. We're going to remove half of this cabinet and make a place for a refrigerator here. And where the refrigerator used to be back here is going to be a space for a stove. Now, we'll offer the house without a stove, but if I have to put in a stove to get a tenant, I certainly will. Many times the tenants will bring their own stoves, and they always bring their own refrigerators.
So you're going to, in the flooring in here, are you going to rip this out too? Or you're pretty much ripping everything out except the hardwoods over there, I guess.
That is correct. Well, there's some ceramic tile in the hall area that we're going to salvage. This will all come out. This will all be LVT, and this will look like it'll be a tile look. And then back here in this bedroom, which is not completely cleaned out yet, that carpet will come up. We'll even out the floor, and that will be LVT that looks like hardwood.
Okay, so carpet is coming out. We're going to go back to the luxury vinyl. We're going to paint, I guess, the whole house.
Yes.
And then this is just one of those situations where, was this an add-on at some point?
I don't know.
Because we got the exterior door right here.
Right, and we have another one here, the sliding glass door.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
That sliding glass door is coming out, just so you know.
Oh, wow.
We'll cover it when we get over there.
Oh, wow.
We always block up the fireplaces. I don't like fires in my houses.
Sure.
All the blinds, of course, get replaced. We've got several interior doors that we'll have to replace. Little pet peeves is always go in with new wire shelving in the closets if it doesn't already have it. A lot of these old homes just have a board up there and a rod. Helps modernize the house slightly.
Gosh, I always get amazed at how people live.
It is incredible. It really, and even my contractors, that a lot of them are not, super clean guys themselves, and they're like, how can somebody live like this?
Yeah.
So it's pretty incredible.
So we got laundry in here with a with a full bath. Is that common over here?
No, I'd say it's more common to find 3 ones for sure. 1 bath houses. We got a natural skylight right back here behind you. Probably got a little rain dripping through there right now.
Right. Yeah. How does this happen?
Neglect, really. I mean, it's amazing how tenants will know that the ceiling is leaking, and we don't get a call. It's just amazing. I think sometimes they're doing something illegal, and they just don't want anybody in here.
Now, property management. You said they come and they inspect once a year.
Depends on the property manager. Some of them do it more often. Every 6 months.
Yeah.
There's different programs for different property managers. I have my properties split up in case one of them goes out of business or something were to happen to the owner, and this just not the same company. So I like to be diversified a little bit. But some of them do, almost all of them do at least once a year inspection. One of them has a program when anybody goes out to the house just to unplug a drain or something like that, they change the filter in the air conditioning. I like that.
Yeah.
Even if somebody was there a week ago. So it's a filter once a week sometimes. But, we just know that nobody's going to change the filters.
Right.
We always educate the tenant, leave them filters for them and everything, teach them how to change them, but they don't.
Right.
So just the way it goes.
Right. And this sliding glass door you said is coming out.
Yeah, it's hard to work. People don't feel good about it, security wise. So that's going to come out. This whole deck is coming up. We think from going underneath it, the framing is still good. So we're just going to replace the decking boards themselves. We got a real bad fascia and socket situation on the back. Gutters have fallen down. Got a mess on the property. The guy that took out the trees also does clean outs, and he will clear the property too. We cut every shrub down to the ground and put Roundup on it.
Yeah.
If they want shrubs, they got to bring them in themselves. We'll just put some pine straw if there's a bed.
Right. Right.
We always replace all the lights.
Yep.
You can see the dark hardwood we were talking about. So that'll be restained and a new coat of polyurethane to go over the top. Not my favorite color, but you should have seen it.
Sure. And out here, a lot of these houses have hardwood, natural hardwoods throughout usually.
They do.
And so you try to, I know a lot of folks who own rentals out here have tried to keep as many as you can.
Yes.
Because there's nothing wrong with solid hardwoods for sure. We got a call bath.
So we can still find this tile. We'll replace the broken tile on the floor. If the tile around the tub does not clean up, we can't get all the mildew, that can be painted.
Yeah.
And we'll paint it a cream color. We're going to take the sink out and put a small vanity there, just a cheap vanity from Lowe's.
So this is going to rent for, you think, $1,200. It seems like you're going to have a pretty hefty rehab budget on this one.
The clean out and the trees, just to give you an idea, $4,000 in clearing the property. New flooring, painting, outside paint, new gutters, new door, $20,000. And then I've got to put on a new roof. So probably looking at about $4,000 there. That might sound like a great price. Most of my guys, they know they're going to get 6 or 8 jobs a year from me. So I get some good pricing on stuff like that.
But this is a $30,000 rehab.
Yeah.
I guess is about what I hear you saying.
That's right.
Would you say this is a bigger rehab for your turnovers?
For sure.
What's kind of normal?
We get a fair amount of them back where we just have to go up and touch up 3 or 4 walls.
Yeah.
And they're rent ready. Might have to clean up some stuff.
Yeah.
This one is unusually, it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't get much worse than this in terms of expense.
Walter, can you kind of talk to the point of keeping like a reserve account? And just when you get in to start buying rentals, or when anyone gets in to start buying rentals, it's like, oh, well, this rental income that comes in, I can go and spend it. Not thinking about taxes, not thinking about tenant turnover, and that tenants are going to damage a property. Or if you keep a property for 14, 15 years, that you're going to inevitably have expenses like this. How important is it to keep that reserve budget? And do you have any tips?
Well, it's a great question. And some of your events, I've heard people talk about, I've got a $200 a month cash flow, and I'm thinking, no, you don't.
Right.
I look at it like 60% of my gross rent is mine, 40%. So if you're renting a house for $1,000, just to make this simple, $400 you better be putting aside to go back into that house. Now you might get it back 2 or 3 tenants where you've got a $4,000 rehab each time, no big deal. Sooner or later, it's going to need a new roof. It's going to need a new HVAC system. It may need an electrical upgrade. You don't know. You don't know what it's going to need, but it's going to need some major components, and those are going to get you. So that's the way I look at it, is at 60%. I had a guy tell me when I first started getting into rentals, because I just did flips and wholesales and all for a while. A guy said, get 10 as fast as you can go, because when 1 or 2 go empty, it won't hurt near as bad. That's probably pretty good advice.
One seems to be pretty risky, like to only have one.
Yeah, I would agree. My wife and I, we both grew up with very frugal parents. So we live, I live in a house a lot less than what I could really afford. It's big enough, it's all we need. It's all we want. So
the cash flow seems nice. Obviously, the tax benefits you're pretty much writing off anything you're getting for the most part.
anytime you go to
depreciation.
Home Depot, it's all a write-off.
That too. Yeah. You're spending money.
I'm not saying I've ever done that. But,
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Every time. Okay. I got it. I get it now. I get it now. So, but you're getting, you got great tax benefits. There is a little bit of cash flow there, but I would even argue probably not enough to change anybody's life. Not enough to, you know, if there's a mortgage, if somebody is keeping a mortgage on a property, there is debt pay down. But it seems to me, and you tell me, because you've owned rentals for a long time. I mean, this one, you know, is a great example, 14 years. It seems to me the wealth component of real estate is just the fact that you hung on to it for 15 years. And it went from being in it for 30, including the rehab, 30, to now it's worth 175.
Well, in terms of equity, you're right. I guess in equity buildup, sure, you know, if I cashed out of the house, I'd have a lot more money. There are those who would argue that the money won't buy you any more than it would have 15 years ago. Maybe that's true, maybe not. I think housing has gone up a little bit more than normal inflation, especially here lately. Brian, I look at it like every house is bringing me from $7,000 to $12,000 a year. So let's just say it's 8,000 or 9,000. Like you said, that won't change anybody's life. But if you've got 20 of them, you know, you start getting up to 25 or 30 properties, which I think if you put an effort into it, you could find 2 or 3 properties per year that you could make work financially. You talked about if you have debt on the property. When my wife and I started this, we would find a house that we could rehab and sell retail. And we were making an average of a little over $41,000 a pop. And so we did 6 or 7 of those a year. We tried to live off of about 10 of that and take the other and buy a rental house free and clear. So I haven't had much debt. The only debt that I've had are houses that I bought subject to the existing financing, or I had seller financing provided to me, which is my favorite way to buy by far. You got to have a few houses to be making a difference. But so we accumulated quite a few pretty early on. Back in the crash of 2008, we racked up. I mean, I don't even know how many houses we bought in that 2 to 3 year period when everybody said stay out of real estate. We were actually retailing then too, which everybody says you can't retail right now. But if you were in the right price range, you could. And so, you know, we were just going great guns. You know, you get to a point when you get enough, and, you know, it might be 30, 35 houses. I'm not sure at what point this happens, but, you know, if you're going to fly away to Italy, why stay a week? Why don't you just stay for 6 weeks? You know, it's no big deal. And so that's the beauty of rentals. It does take some time, I think, to get in to where you really feel good about it. It's about a 10-year process. You say, well, 10 years, that's a long time. But it's not very many businesses that you can start and say, wow, I'm doing great in 10 years. You know, usually it takes a whole generation. And the second generation benefits from the business.
Right.
I've got 2 sons, so they'll each get half the houses, and they can do what they want to with them. I'm encouraging them just to take the monthly income.
Sure.
But they may cash out and buy Corvettes. I don't know what they'll do.
Sure.
That's going to be up to them.
It's up to them. I want to kind of walk around the exterior of the house, if that's okay with you.
Let's do it.
And then I do want to ask you, kind of as we come on out, talk about this area for a second. Kind of looking at this area from an outsider's perspective. You know, I pull up to a house like this. Talk about kind of like the difference between retail and rental. This is what I would consider to be just a straight up rental type of area, or at least it has been historically. Certainly there's parts of East Lakes that are retailing and have gone kind of nuts.
Yeah.
But this is just kind of like a historically rental type of area where you can go in and get houses for $15,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 and rent them out for $900 all day long. That's a good return for most people. Kind of talk about this type of house specifically in this type of area.
Okay. You know, Brian, things have changed in the last 10 years, probably 15 years. People in their late 20s and in their 30s, they're moving into areas like this. They want ownership. And they might have a junker on both sides of them, but their house and yard will be beautiful, and they're happy with that. I have a son that lives in New Orleans. In fact, the one that sold me this house. They've got abandoned houses on both sides of their house. Their house is worth like $1.3 million. But the 2 houses on both sides, they're condemned by the city. They're trying to buy them. And,
Wow.
and they're doing the same thing they did to their house 8 houses down. They bought it for $275. They're putting $300,000 into it, and then they'll sell it for 1.2. That's going to happen in any metropolitan area. People are going to start fixing up some of these old neighborhoods, and it's going to go from there. Now, you got a timing situation. You know, they're not all like that. You don't want to go into some areas that we both know about in the city of Birmingham and count on that happening in our lifetime.
Right. If ever.
Yeah. So we'll redo the outside. It'll be fresh painted. We'll put on at least a new panel on the door. This one has a garage door opener, which will come out because that's a maintenance headache.
Oh, yeah.
We will remove it so nobody has any expectations there. We got some window work to do. Make sure there's no flaking paint in case it rents Section 8.
Because that's a requirement.
Correct.
Section 8.
We put security doors on most of our homes.
And is this kind of like, this is a crawl space, right? This is kind of a stand-up crawl space?
No, this is the garage.
Oh, it's the
Single-car
garage. That's right. That's right. That's right.
Then I got a little bit of stand-up. We can go in the garage. The door's unlocked. And then I got a little bit of stand-up where the air conditioner and the water heater is.
Gotcha.
And then it becomes crawl space about half of the house. But you can see if you come back here, the soffit and the fascia board here on the back. Now, wood has gone up like crazy in the last few years, but wood is still cheap in terms of repairing a house.
Sure.
That's not a big deal.
And then a roof.
You got to get a new roof. And right now you can get a metal roof for the same price you can get shingles.
And they last way longer.
Yeah.
The trees out here, you can actually see them on the other side of the house over there. There's 2 trees in the front yard. One's dead. They're to the left if you can see it. And then one's kind of straight ahead. You're taking those down.
That's correct.
A tough decision sometimes for, especially you're sitting here trying to like hold a rental and cash flow something. And because of like everything that you do that you feel like is extra is kind of eating away at the cash flow.
You're exactly right. And that's probably a $2,500 deal to take both of those trees out. And I'm getting a good deal.
That's 2.5 months of rent.
Yeah.
I appreciate you kind of taking us through this house. Is there anything I'm forgetting about? Is there anything that you also want to mention that maybe I forgot to ask about?
People that might be looking at getting into this business, you just got to be completely unemotional about it. I find that a lot of people that they want to do something on their own, they're a little bit too OCD and they'll get too involved in the decisions and everything. And you got to be able to let things go. There's a lot of people that can't work with contractors because the contractors just are not as anal as they are. You got to adjust a little bit. People that get into real estate tend to be a little bit entrepreneurial, and entrepreneurs tend to be control freaks. I know I am. So I have to constantly tell myself, you know, let it ride.
Yeah.
Just go. It's good enough.
And kind of almost speaking to that point, what about like a house like this versus a house that maybe if I'm not in real estate or I haven't had a rental yet, I'm thinking like super, super nice, over the top, like almost like a house I would want to live in,
right,
versus a house that is sufficient enough for a tenant.
Right.
Can you kind of talk to that point for a second? Like what to maybe...
Well, the last few houses I have purchased have been a dramatic step up from this. That house is probably worth about $230,000. So it's a very, very nice bread and butter neighborhood. You know, it's a cheap house in that just vinyl sided, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths with a full underneath basement, unfinished.
Right.
2-car garage. And that thing rents for about $1,400, sometimes $1,495. First couple of tenants we had stay for like a year, and it killed me. I mean, I'm like, shoot. And then you think about this will rent for $1,200. I got 30 grand in it. And that one up there, I think I paid $130 for it, and it only rents for $200 a month more. So it's simple economics. If you put it down on paper, you're going like, man, and I'll be honest with you, in rental, the lower you go, the more money you're going to make. That's just the bottom line.
There's more risk though, right? With the tenant potentially taking
on? I don't know. You get some pretty brutal tenants and the other stuff too. But you know, my old friend, and I think you at least know of him, Archie Phillips. He passed away 2 or 3 years ago. Man, he had I called him a slumlord to his face. You know, I joke around with him because I mean his stuff was just low end out in Wylam and Fairfield and all of that. But he made a ton of money. Just made a ton.
Yeah.
So there's a level of where it gets uncomfortable. And for me too. I don't want to be where I need a one of the cyber trucks with the bulletproof glass. I don't want that.
Yeah.
I want to feel safe if I go in there.
For sure. Walter, thank you so much for giving us a tour, and almost like really not just of this house, but giving us almost a tour into your world too, like that rental world here in Birmingham. And I appreciate you doing this.
Sure. I'll say one thing too. When I would not be in this business if I didn't have property managers. I couldn't stand it. I wouldn't be able to deal with tenants on a daily basis and take the calls at night when the toilet's clogged up or anything of that nature. I don't understand people that manage their own houses. I really don't. If it's not your business, like if you're not in the property management business, I don't understand what makes your head work to want to do this. So I like to be removed from it. And this is a house that I've taken on myself when I got it back off of lease. But a lot of my houses, the property manager handles everything. They just tell me, hey, it's going to be $4,000 to fix it up, get it rent ready. And I'll say, go for it.
It's probably the difference between doing a kind of a bigger rehab though too.
Sometimes it also depends on the property manager. One of my property managers is all ladies. And so they're not as adept at getting things fixed up. They don't get as good a pricing from their contractors.
But they might do a better job of finding a good tenant.
They do. They actually do. Yeah. And if they do the rehab, it's going to look really nice, nicer than I want it to look.
You're going to spend too much money though.
So, but yeah, everything's a trade-off.
Yeah, but I'm definitely with you on the property management piece. I feel like probably the hardest part of real estate. That's the most difficult part of real estate. The part that I don't want to have anything to do with.
I remember at a real estate association years ago, this man and wife were telling me they were managing their own, and I said, man, you guys need to get out of that. You're driving around in a nice European vehicle. That just is not you guys. And they say, he said, oh, we're doing it. We're doing it. So then I ran into him at our mailbox. We share we like an old mailbox, et cetera. That's now it's a UPS store, but that's where I get all my corporate mail. And I ran into him there. I said, are you still doing the rental? He says, no. He says, my wife told me that our tenant stole her soul. So he says, Walter, you were right. We should have gotten management. We would still be doing it.
You laugh. That is so true though.
Yeah.
It almost like makes it to where you get so numb to just, you're late again. You're not paying rent again. It's like the empathy that you had for people just deteriorates.
Yep. You'll become like a police officer. You're just jaded.
Yes.
Mad at the world.
Yes.
So anyway.
It's great advice. Walter, thank you again.
Thanks so much for listening to today's show. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you got any value today, please take 30 seconds and leave us a quick review. To get connected with me or to become a part of the Board Advisors community, go to boamastermind.com. That's boamastermind.com. We'll see you guys on the next one.